Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar from WCN on managing your public services talent acquisition to pave the way for efficiencies. This is a follow-up to a really well-received seminar that we held last month in London and will be led by our marketplace expert Mark Houlihan, who's been with us for 6 years and knows the industry very, very well indeed. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you. We will be looking at questions on the pane, which you'll see on your desktop. The lines are all muted, so please only use the comments or the questions areas of GoTo to correspond with us. And there'll be time for some Q&A towards the end of this session. Other than that, please sit back, enjoy the show, and I will hand you over to Mark.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. And as Joe said, this is a follow-up from a seminar we have recently held in October, and we were joined by a number of clients. We're very privileged to have them with us. British Transport Police, Diversity Jobs, Nottinghamshire County Council, and Steria on behalf of Metropolitan Police. And the themes that they covered during the seminar were technology and how it supports their drives for diversity, their challenges, and also a reduction in cost as well. So I tried to feed in elements of this throughout my presentation to reflect the seminar. And I'm going to use predominantly British Transport Police as a case study and pick up various points throughout the process, and just to describe how British Transport Police have used our technology to help them meet their challenge around diversity particularly. We'll also have a look at our ROI calculator toward the end, and we're happy to take any questions that you may have. So a little bit about us for those who haven't met us before, don't know too much about us. We are a UK company. We're 20 years old, which means we are the longest serving provider of e-recruitment solutions in the market at the moment, and we're a growing organisation. We are adding offices in New York, but also in Asia as well, and over 100 headcounts, primarily focused on supporting our platform and our clients as well. What's really important to our clients is that we have quite a background in implementation, over 500 over the past 20 years with 400 employees, but we're very focused, we're 100% focused on e-recruitment technology, which gives us a lot of experience, a lot of lessons learned across that time. I thought I'd give you a quick intro to some of our client base across the British landscape and worldwide, through banking, finance, and other public, private sector areas, but also around public sector and government, and we provide the largest e-recruitment portal for central government with about 150 organisations currently using that, but also local and government shared services and blue light as well. Around police, we are actually the leading provider of e-recruitment to police forces, with 42% of English police forces currently using WCN as an e-recruitment platform. Diversity was a very strong feature of our seminar, and something that's very important to all of our clients. And and I asked myself the question a number of times, why do we need diversity? And quite a lot of the time, the message coming back is because it adds to the bottom line. There's a huge business case for this, but nobody could tell me very clearly, and I've done a lot of research to say exactly what the benefits are. And I discovered the benefits are quite broad and wide, and increased adaptability, a much broader viewpoint, a much wider audience in which to get your clients from, and lots more. And when you think about annual spend in diversity and ethnic groups, it's quite considerable. And it's quite a market in which to make sure you are present and you are attracting the right kinds of people. So if that's the evidence, then what's the problem? The problem seems to be bias, and it's people's innate bias, and it shows up in a number of different ways in terms of affinity, confirmation, comparison bias, but also manifests itself in two particular ways. One is conscious bias, and that can be managed quite effectively through effective training. What is more difficult to manage is unconscious bias. It can be addressed through training, but the real challenge here is the speed in which unconscious bias triggers. And I was quite surprised to learn that actually between 30 and 100 milliseconds, where conscious thinking takes about 300 milliseconds. So what it really means is that as soon as you see somebody, almost instantly, you've made a decision, you've made a conclusion, and you have to then fight very strongly to try and overcome that. So what is it we can do to protect ourselves? One of the answers is using technology to help address some of that unconscious bias. I sort of go through a few examples of how WCN have helped organisations, but also how other organisations are actually positioning themselves to attract the best talent from these diversity and ethnic groups. The process we'll go through is how we can manage relationships, source candidates, what effect of the application selection process is, and also how we can use reporting effectively to help our strategic decisions moving forward. So really, from a technology perspective, it is really a good idea to have all of your diversity partners in one single place so that you can quickly find them, contact them, but understand who the correct and the right people are in order to help you with that particular challenge in mind. So WCN system supports that in terms of keeping a database of your diversity partners. Also, target your recruitment and set quality targets and actually measure against that. We'll see how this works a little bit later on as well. An example of one of our clients, British Transport Police, and how they've managed to use the system to help them in their strategy. When they first looked at this, they realised that there are not a lot of BME police officers or female police officers within the force. So they decided to develop a strategy of 15 in 5 by 2019. So what does that mean? Well, it means they want to have 50% of police forces making up BME officers. Women filling 15% of senior posts, and at least 15% of employees described as LGBT. And also to be in the top 15% of Stonewall Workplace Index. And that's quite a strong challenge for them. What they are trying to do to address that is using sourcing side of our solution to help them move from a more competitive place. One of the subjects that Morgan Loeb from Diversity Jobs talked about is the biggest challenge that organisations have, in that where everyone's doing the same thing, it becomes very crowded, very competitive, very congested, and difficult to differentiate yourself within that space towards your target market. So what he's introduced to us was a concept of working in, rather than a red ocean, but working in a blue ocean. Try to do something different, something that is innovative, that stands out, and makes you different from the crowd, and helps you rise above the noise and attract yourself to your target audience. And certainly a number of organisations are doing that. Promote your employer brand and your EVP. Do it on your website. A lot of organisations are actually doing an awful lot of good work. The challenge they have is they're not actually communicating that very, very well. Your website is one example of where you can bring that message, and it's probably the first step most people will take. Secondly is actually target your audience, your advertising to your audience, not just to the groups in the sectors that you're targeting, but also to where they hang out, speak their language. If you're a non-national, then are you going to be spending most of your time looking at mainstream media? Probably not. My guess is that actually you're more aligned to go back to where you've come from in terms of your local home newspapers and adverts and your community sort of advertising. So that's a really strong place to start to make a difference and to get your message across to the right people. An example of how organisations are doing that, BBC are clearly very good at that and bringing their message and their links to their target audience. In this case, it's a diversity workforce. WCN can help you with that by allowing you to set up through our content management or candidate engagement facility to target your conversation and position your organisation right up front, from based on a vacancy by vacancy or even status by status, which means you can change your message as you get through the candidate walks through your application process. So here we have messages for different roles and at different stages where we can communicate and keep our candidates engaged and more likely to accept our offer, particularly when it comes through the onboarding phase. You can start changing your message and then get them engaged in terms of who they're going to be seeing and perhaps align them with a mentor or something like that. Promote roles through events is a really strong way. You may actually have a bunch of eligible candidates within your grasp, people you've already met, people you already know, or perhaps create events, invite people into the organisation who you would like to target and talk to. What we find, or certainly what BTP have found, is particularly when they're targeting females, they wanted to get to know the organisation much more than males, and it made them feel much more comfortable about approaching joining an application process. Once you have events created, we can help you do that. We can help you advertise. British Transport Police again used our solution to advertise and also allow candidates to register their intention and their arrival. And they found our standard events offering was completely suitable, but they did have to manage the application form a little bit, and they were able to create their own forms through self-configuration to make sure that those who arrived were eligible and weren't later going to be kicked out because of something very small that they should have picked up earlier on in the registration process. Monitoring candidates throughout was a really strong aspect for British Transport Police. They were able to invite them, have them submit when they attend, register that, but also track them through the process. Flags were raised where somebody was having maybe some difficulty and further support was able to be given, but also to help that tracking piece, BTP actually created hidden vacancies in which they put those candidates so they're easy to find. The technology, WCN technology, actually have a selection feature that allows you to do exactly the same thing, so you don't have to hide vacancies if that's going to be a challenge from a compliance perspective for you. Partner candidates with mentors or buddies when they arrive in, and make sure that obviously that their early introduction to the organisation is nice and smooth. The key to this is, once you spend a lot of activity and a lot of time, effort and cost attracting and getting people in, you really don't want them to disappear after a very short time, so you have to then run the same process again. How about when you are engaging with candidates, you've identified high quality candidates through an event, you keep in contact with them, keep engaged with them, and actually flag those who are of most interest, and then those who are of most interest to you, and you can then identify other conversations and maybe comments around conversations that people throughout your organisation have had with them. Talent pools is a really strong and powerful advocate or ally within the diversity attraction strategy. BTP for us is used when they were presented with their challenge, they immediately went through to the pool of candidates they already know about in order to attract those and identify those who could be suitable and invite them to an event. They found that was a great start for them.
The solution helps you do this and helps you prioritise even throughout the rest of your organisation through a least cost sourcing cycle. It brings you through priority movers perhaps, and then using other tools such as social media, and at the very end of the process using things like agencies if you really have to for those final hard to fill roles. But this least cost source cycle is designed to help guide you through the appropriate steps first, and it's highly configurable as well to reflect the steps that suit your organisation. An example of how effective talent pooling can be, British Transport Police actually use this and saves a significant amount of money within the first year, redeploying, not having to make people redundant. Simply Health, on a more broader perspective, use that to reduce reliance on agencies and reduce recruitment costs, and overachieving on a 22% target. Applications is really the key area. We want to make sure that candidates stay engaged. First and foremost, we need to make sure that our technology is compliant to at least AA standard, and make sure that you can resize text or recontrast the screen as appropriate, or perhaps even use things like screen readers, or with our partners, Diversity Jobs, you can use their Speak This Page, which translates the page or speaks it out and translates it into a language, or one of 19 languages that they provide for you. Making sure that guaranteed interview scheme and other compliance to the Commissioner's Code is built into the system. So, for instance, flagging those who wish to be considered within the guaranteed interview scheme, and making sure all throughout your process it's compliant, including tests, to make sure it's the best possible experience for your candidates. Selection is really powerful, and really important, particularly around interviewing. So protect line managers from bias, so we anonymise the data as it comes in. Also, you can assess on specific criteria, but make sure you're using a representative panel to make the best decision, but also it shows the candidate that actually you're serious about your upfront statements that they would have read on your website and throughout the process so far. Blind screening is incredibly important, so we can anonymise everything upon submission, so those at the early stages can only see the key information that they need. We can also deliver the information to you in the appropriate fashion. So in these questions and answers, so you simply review, score, comment, make a decision, on to the next candidate. Reporting, very powerful, very important. It's a way for you to manage and track your progress through your targets and see where various ethnicity groups in this example may be falling out towards the process or within the process, so you can then take another look at that and make adjustments accordingly. Tracking your targets, those group of people we saw earlier, we can display how you're getting on, what's next, so you can keep completely up to date and on the case. Be more effective. Make sure your events are doing are returning on your investment and doing what you want it to do. And you can again measure the conversion rate to see how many are actually being transferred. Reverse engineering. The reports might actually give a very positive figure impression, but looking in a bit more detail, you can break that down to see actually it's not picking up in the areas we really want to. So you can look at those. So it's about making strategic decisions. Management information, again from BTP, they've used our technology and they found that as they went through, the attraction of BME and females throughout the process was improving. So they're on the right track, which is good news. From a technology perspective, it's not just about diversity, equality, it's also about actually getting a system in and making sure it delivers on its promise and returns on the investment. And one of the biggest challenges through a business case is actually how do we understand what that saving is, where it's going to come from, and what we can expect so we can measure it. And effectiveness, drive, engage digitally with users, feedback. So these are all the challenges that Nottingham County Council wanted to achieve from a digital technology, from WCN system. And these are the measures with which they have checked against their progress since they implemented the system 3 years ago. What we are doing for people these days is allowing organisations to check that in advance. We've launched in October our ROI calculator, which helps identify, based on the information you submit, where your savings are going to be and exactly what the saving value is likely to be as well. So the first output is a statement of a number. This is how much you're going to save based on the information you've put in. It gives you also an overview, identifying where they are and the nature of those savings. And for example, West Mercia Police in the first 6 months have achieved nearly 300% saving against ROI on efficiencies only. Other output is also in form of a graph that gives you a much clearer picture of where your savings are going to be. Just another example, back to Nottingham County Council, over 3 years they've achieved a 300% return on investment, which was actually 100% beyond what they had expected. If you're interested in using our ROI calculator, do let us know. Happy to send you out a link and give you an opportunity to use that, and maybe it's a starting point of a conversation internally as to the sorts of savings that you can look to achieve. I hope that was all of interest. If you have any questions, do let me know.
Thanks, Mark. And that was a very comprehensive marathon run through so many different topics that occurred during the actual seminar. And apologies if you had any difficulty hearing sound towards the start of the webinar. We had a few technical problems, but hopefully you have found it interesting. Lots of ground covered there on diversity, efficiencies, transformation, and really helping you to achieve ROI. And I think that should give you a good grasp as to how you can manage your talent acquisition better and pave the way for efficiencies. We've got a few minutes for Q&A, so if you do have any questions, please do use the questions offering on the go-to system. Alternatively, your WCN contact will be in contact with you after this, so you can ask them any questions that you wish to pursue off the back of this presentation. Maybe, Mark, if I just start by asking you about the big diversity angle there, and really what prevalence of public services you find are really asking for help with diversity through technology.
Well, within the public sector, diversity is a compliance issue. It's something that's incredibly important. Public sector represents general public, and it's important that they reflect that, particularly around police forces. And everybody's interested in that, and the biggest challenge that I see when I talk to people is how do we move from our current situation. We're trying to do a lot. We've got programs internally, we are training our managers, yet still we are having challenges in meeting some of the targets that we set ourselves. So I just think from a technology perspective, everything throughout your process is recorded, and using reporting facility you can reverse engineer, backtrack, find out where your candidates are dropping out. And once you have that data, then you can make other more strategic decisions. Do we need to make some changes, some adjustments from a positive action perspective, or do we need to branch out and maybe approach candidates in a different way? As I said from the beginning, do we want to communicate? Are we using The Guardian as an advertising tool, or are we actually focusing on more local publications that our diversity audience will more likely look at? Are events going to help? Is that something we could invest in? getting people in to know, to understand and learn a bit more about the organisation, make them feel more comfortable that actually we are doing all the things they would want us to do, and we are an organisation that they should consider. One message actually Morgan Loeb gave us is that when people go to look for a job, they're not necessarily looking for a company, they're looking for a role. Part of that decision will be how they feel, do they feel comfortable? And that's going to start right from the initial search. So that messaging and that engagement upstream is going to be very important.
Great, thanks. I think we're about at the end of this webinar session. If you have raised any questions and we haven't had time to go through them, don't worry, they are captured on the system, and we will get Mark to come back in contact with you or one of his colleagues. Just a quick note to invite anybody who has an emerging talent campaign going on and are interested to attend one of our next seminars. They are global. San Francisco on December the 7th, New York on December the 9th, and London on January the 20th. And you can just drop us an email at seminars@wcn.co.uk if you are interested in any of those events. And that's really about it from us this morning or this afternoon now. Thank you very much for your presence. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen. We hope it's been useful, and all feedback will be welcome. Please do have a conversation with your WCN representative. When they get in contact, we'd love to hear what you thought, and we're happy to share slides if that helps you out. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Thank you.